started off with a beautiful attention getter. He gave you an overview of the Hubco company from which you perhaps could have drawn practical inferences. And a key point that struck me was the paranoiagenic organization, where he spoke about the fears, the hostilities, the all sorts of negative thinking that can go on in most of our organizations unless the leadership is spot on. In addition to that, after having highlighted those weak areas, he recommended certain special points on what the focus of contemporary companies should be, and he also, in passing, proved that the dog is the man's best friend. But even the dog, if you don't give him proper leadership, he might bite you. So, also the need for trust. He finally gave you a series of very pragmatic recommendations, which I'm sure, if you listen carefully, you can put into practice when you get back to your respective companies. And talking about change, I could not help but take special notice of my good friend, the evergreen Mr. Max Barbary. And I find that his hair is getting longer and he's getting bolder, while my hair is getting shorter and I'm more effectively getting balder. But talking about baldness, Max, they say, somebody asked me, is there a theory behind this? I said, yes. People who get bald in front, they say they are thinkers. People who get bald from behind, they say they are sexy. Then people like me who get bald from front, behind, and all sides, they are people who think they are sexy. And now, following the footsteps of Vince Harris, we have the second presentation, and the subject is transforming leadership behavior. Speaker after speaker, up to now, ladies and gentlemen, highlighted and emphasized the need for change in behavioral patterns of managers, of leaders, to be able to produce results in challenging times, in traumatic times. That is the challenge of managers of today. And to talk about transforming behavioral leadership or leadership behaviors, it is my pleasure to hand you over to a very competent gentleman who is the head of sub-region Gulf and Pakistan of Nokia Siemens Network. He has shared his knowledge effectively even in Karachi. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for this eloquent speaker, Said Wakar ul Islam.
You sure about the sound system? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I don't know if the introduction of Dr. Upali about baldness had anything to do with me, but I must confess that his thought process is spot on about what bald people think about themselves. Right. Now, before I start what I have to say, I must also acknowledge and thank Dr. Upali for the sentiments he expressed regarding the flood situation in Pakistan. Thank you very much, sir. I also take this opportunity on behalf of every one of us to apologize to you one more time for what happened to the Sri Lankan cricket team when they were here. We wish to see them back again so that we can wash the memories of that ugly incident. Now, talking about transformational leadership, first thing that I could not have had podium between me and you if I was talking about transformational leadership. So it's better that I stand here and talk to you about some of the experiences I have had in Pakistan, and now that I'm managing 9 countries, so I can also shed some light on some of the experiences I've had dealing with cultures. Now, in my personal view, when you talk about difference between good and great organization, then it is all about leadership. In my view, good organization, difference between good and great organization, and people will give you a lot of definitions that they pursue excellence, they pursue customer care, they are very close to people. I think the difference between good and great organization, in a good organization, the productivity level of people is at around almost 80%. So which means 80% of the people do 80% of the time on an average what they are supposed to do in any case, right? And So it's a running organization, it is an operational organization, it's doing well, it's doing good. It's not very noticeable, but at an 80% level, you produce a good organization. If you want a great organization, then the productivity level needs to be at 110%. This additional 30% difference in productivity between the good organization and great organization is only because of transformational leadership. We've all heard the old adage that people buy people. We've heard it, that it's not about organization. At the end of the day, it's about relationship. It's about people buying from each individual. At the end of the day, it's actually people also work for people. People do not work for organization all the time. They work for managers. There was a study which suggested that 95% of the people, when they leave an organization, they leave it because of the line managers. Not because of the organization, not because of the salary, not because of the benefits, not because of the working culture, but because whether the leader that they have is able to instill the trust, the respect, the admiration that they need from the leader. And so transformational leadership in today's world is absolutely essential if you want to move away from good to great. Now, we typically in Pakistan have a long way to go even to get to the good state in majority or in many of the organizations. But nonetheless, what I'll talk about are some of the traits or some of the experiences that I've had in my life, which I thought touches the basic value system that you need to have in a leader. I think the first thing that a transformational leader always has, that he's a role model in true sense of the word. He doesn't say anything that he doesn't practice himself. That's the key. Now, if you want people to be transparent, then you need to be transparent to them first. If you want people to trust you, you need to trust them first. If you want people to make faster decisions, you need to make faster decisions first. If you want people to show admiration for the good work that is being done in the organization, you need to do that first. You set the pace of the organization. You set the pace of what needs to happen in the organization. You set the pace of the what part in the organization and the how part in the organization, and both are incredibly important in today's world. A lot of the good leaders, they focus on the what part. What part is the financial? How we are doing on the revenues, how we are doing on the growth, how we are doing on the gross margins, on the receivables, on the assets, on the inventories, etc. That's the what part. But the how part is how you are going to get there. The how part touches the moral values of the organization. The how part touches people. The how part means that the leaders need to be engaged with the people down there in the organization, not just with the people who are just directly reporting to them. The how part will happen when leaders are willing to go out of their offices. First of all, they need to open their offices. This closed office culture can never create transformational leadership and can never create a culture of transformational leadership. You need to first open your doors to people so that they can walk into you when they need you, not when you want them. Then the pace of the organization slows down. The second is transformational leadership means you need to get out of your office and be with people. You need to be visible to the people. Once you start doing that, it becomes a culture. Then other people in the organization will also start doing this. A lot of people do not understand how much leaders are seen in the organization. Let me give you an example. When Nokia and Siemens merged together, and I was at that time the country head for Pakistan for Nokia and subsequently became the country head for Nokia Siemens network. It was a large merger globally as well as in Pakistan. We were close to 1,800 people. In the country, 18 offices. In my stupid wisdom, at that time, I thought because I come from Nokia, so I know Nokia people very well, I need to engage with the Siemens people a lot more because they need to feel comfortable in me that I'm the right leader for them. So I started engaging with them a lot more. And during those days, on Wednesday, I used to do something like breakfast with Bakar with many people who would like to spend time with me every week. In one of the sessions that I had, which was probably 6 or 8 months out after the merger, And you know, it's always a group of people with whom you can relate and interact. Now, one of the girl, and in Islamabad, I was at that time based in Islamabad. We had 8 offices from the 2 organizations. So I literally had to cover 8 offices, and I used to go out. But I was going out a lot more again to ex-Siemens offices and not ex-Nokia offices. Now, one of the girls in the breakfast, she told me, in the last 8 months, do you know you have been in one of the Siemens offices 8 times, and you have never been to our office once. People watch you. People notice you. I could never imagine that they even count how many times I have been to different offices. Transformational leadership engages people. It touches on, I think, 4 very important areas in my view. First is, it's about individual. That is, people are able or should be able to relate to you as an individual. They should be able to come to you when they need you, and they should be able to get some coaching out of you. So it's about individual. The second is about idealism. That is, they need to see you as someone who is a role model for them, as someone who lives the value that he talks about. Transformational leadership, remember, always touches a lot on the moral values, on the emotional chords of people and the organization. If the leader has the right culture, if the leader has the right value system, the chances are the organization will also carry through the value system that he's preaching. So the second is all about idealism. Do they see you as a role model? Do they see you as an ideal that they would like to behave when they get to your position? The third is all about intellectually stimulating leadership. Now, what it means is that when people come to you with problems, you're not only there to support them, but you're able to give them a fresh perspective, a new way of looking at it, a new way of simplifying the problem or coming up with a solution which they have not thought of before. So transformation leaders are also very innovative. Transformational leaders are also out of box. They come up with new ideas, they come up with simplified way of doing things, and they encourage people to come to them so that they can coach them and guide them. And last but not the least, in my view, transformational leaders is all about inspiration. They are like, and probably this is why it is called transformational leaders, that they are literally like transformers. That is, you take the existing energy, and then by the time you get it out, you take the energy level to the next. And that's about the inspiration that these transformational leaders are able to create. Let me share with you another example of the trust that leaders need to create in their people. If they can do that, they can get away with anything. And trust means you need to believe what you say, and also you need to be very transparent to people. Now, it doesn't mean you always give them the good news. It means even if it is a bad news, you're open to them, and you're candid, and you share with them the reasons. Now, again, after the merger, and I have a lot of stories on the merger and why it is so interesting on evolving a culture after the merger and how best to go about it. Now, again, because Nokia and Siemens at one time were competitors as well, so one of the guy called me, and we created a culture where we kind of got rid of hierarchy. If anyone had anything to do, he can call me directly on my mobile, and I have to listen to him, or I have to call him back, or I have to give him the time. So he said, I need to see you. He was like a very junior engineer. I said, fine, come over. So he came to my office, and he said, I'm extremely upset. I said, what happened? So he showed me his telephone, a mobile phone, which was a Siemens phone. A very old phone. Now, Siemens got out of mobile phone business a few years ago. They sold it to BenQ, and then eventually BenQ also got bust. So he had a very old telephone. And he said, you look at this telephone? I said, yes, I do. So he said, you know my manager? What he did today, this morning, he came to me, and he said, why are you carrying a crappy phone? Go and change it. So he said, how dare he call my company that I worked for years, a crappy company, and how dare he call this a crappy phone? And then I said, is there a possibility that what he was actually referring to was that your phone is actually old, nothing to do with the brand. It's actually old, and you need to change it. So probably he said it in the goodness of his heart that you need to buy a new phone.